Okay, hi. Today I wanted to talk to you about my classics TBR for 2024, and at this point this is a tradition that I post this video in February, so we're just gonna roll with it. But before we do that, very briefly I would like to talk about my classics TBR for 2023 and how that whole thing went. So I don't know, maybe if you watched my ranking all the classics I read in 2023 video, you might know that overall I did not have a good reading year when it comes to classics last year. So last year I only put 5 books on my 2023 classics TBR, and I think this was a mistake because it wasn't challenging for me. Because I chose only 5 books, this TBR was never a priority for me because I was like, it's only 5 books, I can read it like whenever, right? I just kept thinking like, it's gonna be so easy. And like, it was easy. I have finished all 5 books that I put on my 2023 classics TBR. But I don't like the fact that it wasn't challenging for me. I mean, to be fair, most of the books from my TBR I read at the end of the year because I kept putting it off because I kept thinking like, I have time, like it's going to be so easy, it's only 5 books. And basically the last book, which is like a collection of short stories, Ward Number 6, specifically the short story Ward Number 6, I actually finished on January 2nd or January 3rd, I don't remember, but I'm gonna count it because, I don't know, each year I put out my classics TBR in February, so I'm just like, January is kind of like a grey area, you know? So, very briefly, what I put on my last year's TBR. Demian by Hermann Hesse, which originally I gave 3 stars to, but recently I lowered it to 2 stars on Goodreads, because when I talked about it in my previous video, the more I talked about it, the more I realized how much I disliked this book. So, that was a 2 star. Then we had The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, which I gave 3 stars to and overall was quite disappointed with. And it's even more sad because I considered Edith Wharton to be one of my favorite authors. So there's that, a 3 star. Oh, the short story from this collection, Ward Number 6 by Anton Chekhov, I did finish and I really actually enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Then we have Excellent Woman by Barbara Pym. I also quite enjoyed, but gave it 4 stars. And lastly we have The Posthumous Memoirs of Bras Cubas by Machado de Assis, which I DNF'd unfortunately. So, you know, no 5 stars overall, and if we're not counting Arcadia by Tom Stoppard, which is a play, which was one of my favorite books of last year, if we're not counting that as a classic, I didn't have any 5 stars when it comes to classics last year. Yeah, so overall, I just want to have a better reading year this year. I also realized something. I kept changing my TBR for this year, classics TBR I mean, because I kept putting books from the 19th century, kind of Victorian classics, stuff like that, even though, let's have a real conversation, like, this is going to be a hard pill to swallow, but even though I don't have much interest in 19th century literature right now. Yeah, especially Victorian classics. I might delve into like French literature of 19th century. I'm not sure if this year, but definitely next year. But Victorian classics, I'm kind of over them. And I keep feeling like I have to apologize for this, but I don't, okay? So I'm not gonna. I have read a lot of Victorian classics at this point. Some of them I enjoyed, some of them I didn't. I just feel like I've read the majority that I wanted to read. There aren't that many Victorian classics that I have much interest in because I've read quite a few of them at this point. So this TBR is going to be kind of heavily focused on the 20th century classics. And there's that. I was about to apologize for that. I'm not gonna. That's just where my interests lie currently. So hope you don't mind. That's almost an apology. So let's finally get to the 2024 classics TBR. First things first, I felt like last year especially, because I put only 5 books on my TBR, I kept going back to books that I put on previous classics TBRs and I haven't read them, and I've decided to read them in 2023. You know, instead of reading those books, I kept just going back to my backlist. So my strategy is, the first 2 books are books that I had on some of my previous classics TBR, and I'm going to put them on this list. First we have Stoner by John Williams. I've heard pretty much nothing but great things about this book. I think it's about some university professor, and all I know is that this is going to be extremely depressing, and I do think it involves infidelity to some degree. We'll see how I get along with it, but I've wanted to read this for years, so this year is finally the year when I'm going to read it. And another book about infidelity. I love when classics explore such unique topics. Then we have The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. This is a Polish edition, you probably can even see the title. I think it's about 4 people and it's set in the 1960s in Czech Republic. And I do know it also involves cheating in some kind of way. But from what I've heard, this is very kind of a philosophical book. I don't know, does it explore existentialism? Probably. Oh, if you didn't know, I do not read synopses for classics, especially because they spoil you for the plot of the book. So, I'm not going to tell you much about the plot, just why I picked them up. Okay, then we have all the new books. Oh, where should we start? Let's go with 2 very short books. First we have Chess by Stefan Zweig. I think sometimes it's called Chess Story in some translations. And I don't really know much about this book. I only know that I think it's about some kind of cruise ship that the main character goes on, and there's some kind of like world-class chess champion on board. This is very short. This is like less than 100 pages. The font is gigantic. Look at that. It's so big. Honestly, I'm thinking about reading this for some kind of 24-hour reading vlog, which I do every now and then. Another short classic is The Driver's Seat by Muriel Spark. I've only heard about this book from one other booktuber. I will put their name on the screen. It's escaping me right now. This supposedly is considered to be a psychological thriller. This was, I think, published in the 1970s. I think the main character isn't like mentally doing that great, and I've heard that this is quite a disturbing book and very weird book, but I'm very excited to read this. Also a contender for a 24-hour reading vlog. I might do another one where I only read classics, so watch out for that. Then we have another book that has been on my TBR for a very long time, Moveable Feasts by Ernest Hemingway. I've never read anything by Hemingway, and I have to say, all of his novels, when I read the premise, they don't sound that appealing to me. So I thought might as well start with a non-fiction from him. From what I've heard, this is a, I don't know, what would you call it, like a collection of like little snippets of his life in Paris. Yeah, Hemingway's memories of his life as an unknown writer living in Paris in the 20s. And I think during his time in Paris, he met a lot of famous writers there, like James Joyce, Fitzgerald, people like that. So honestly, I've heard the most positive things about this collection, more so than about his novels from my experience, so very excited. Then we have Kurt Vonnegut's Cat Cradle. When it comes to Kurt Vonnegut, I don't know where I stand with him, because I've read Slaughterhouse-Five, which I absolutely loved. I loved how it was like an anti-war novel, but then I also read Breakfast of Champions, which I despised. So I don't know, I feel like this book will help me to figure out where I stand with Kurt Vonnegut. All I know about this novel is that it's kind of like sci-fi, and I think the main character invented the atomic bomb. So I don't know, I think it involves somehow like nuclear war kind of topics. It's given Oppenheimer, but I'm sure it's going to be fun with a lot of Vonnegut's wit and usual satire. Okay, then we have Madonna in a Fur Coat by Sabahattin Ali. This is a Turkish classic, a Turkish love story actually, and I think it's set in 1920s Berlin. And I think it's about 2 artists maybe who fall in love, and I think it's kind of a doomed relationship, because I'm guessing it's also going to explore the Second World War. And somehow, and like, don't quote me on that, but I don't know if it's like the black and white cover, but it's giving Cold War, the Polish movie that was nominated for Oscars a few years ago. But we'll see how right I am with that comparison. Very excited about this one. Then we have Despised and Rejected by Leroux. Allatini. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know much about this book, aside from the fact that this is a classic that focuses on some queer characters, gay characters I think. When is it set? Let's see. I think this was published in 1918, and it's not a very well-known classic, but I've heard about it from Katie from Books and Things, and she loved it, so. Also, I love this edition. This is the Persephone Classics edition. Very simple design, love the shade of grey, and it always has some kind of colorful inside pages. yeah, I'll tell you if I recommend it or not this year, hopefully. And also we have Cancer Ward by, oh, I don't know how to say that, Aleksandr. Those letters should not be next to each other. This is a Russian classic, right? I think this is a Russian classic that was like banned after its publication. I'm not sure if it's still banned in Russia, but I do know it kind of criticizes the Soviet police state. But it takes place in a cancer ward in Russia, and I think it's like semi-autobiographical. And it says that Cancer Ward is both a deeply compassionate study of people facing terminal illness and a brilliant dissection of cancerous Soviet police state. Quite long, I'm not gonna lie. How long is it actually? Like almost 600 pages long. So this is definitely the longest classic on my TBR, but the font isn't that bad, so hopefully I'll get to it. By the way, I'm putting quite a lot of books on my classics TBR for this year, because overall my goal is to read 100 books this year, which is a lot more than I usually do read in a year. But overall, I will be happy if I read more than half classics from this list. Like, obviously the goal is to read them all, but like realistically speaking, I will be happy with more than half. And last two books I don't own. Wait, let me find them. Oh, okay, yeah. I would also like to read Quicksand by Nella Lasren. I have read Passing, I think 2 years ago, and I really loved it. And I'm really upset that Nella Lasren didn't really write that many books. I think, I don't know, I've only heard about Passing and Quicksand, which I think Quicksand is a novella or short story, I'm not sure. It's very short, unfortunately. Don't know anything about the plot, but this is for the better since it's going to be so short. Okay, hello, I just wanted to pop in quickly because I forgot about one book, and that is The Door by Magda Szabó. My instinct is to pronounce it as Szabó, but that's how it would be pronounced in Polish, and I think in Hungarian it's supposed to be Szabó. So this is a Hungarian classic. I think it was published in 1987, and it focuses on two women, one called Magda, who is a writer. So I wonder if it's kind of an autofiction or not, but... Nie! Jezus Maria! Dlaczego taki jesteś? And the second character is her housekeeper, and supposedly they have a very complicated relationship, and that's pretty much all I know about this book. So can't wait to get my hands on it and read it. And Mila says hi. He's purring, can you hear it? Bye. And lastly we have The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Yeah, I can't believe I haven't read that. This is a French classic, and I am worried that it's not going to be my cup of tea, because I have a feeling this is going to be quite melodramatic, which normally doesn't really work for me. But it's such a like famous classic, and I know quite a few people who really loved it, so I just want to know what my opinion is going to be on this. And like, just the fact that it's like set in a theater / opera, I don't know, that setting it really appeals to me. So we'll see. I think that's all. Let me check. How many classics are there? I think 12. Yeah, I wrote 12 classics. Technically, I also would like to read some more French classics from the 19th century, but I still have no idea what exactly I would like to read. So I don't know, realistically speaking, I feel like I'm not going to get to them this year, but I'll probably explore some 19th century French classics next year. But on my list, when it comes to like authors, I have Emily, I am so sorry about my pronunciation, I do not speak any French, but Emily Zola, we have Balzac, André Gide, and Proust. So those are the authors that I have in mind, but I have no idea what exactly I would like to read. So I'm just telling you this unofficially. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it's fine with me too. So those are them. I have a good feeling about this list. There is a 5-star somewhere there, I know that. And hopefully in the upcoming videos you will see me reading those books. So, do you have any classics that you would like to read in 2024? Tell me in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I see you next one. Bye!